Hello there, welcome to the Football Block. My name is Brandon. Today we're going to look back at everything that has happened across the weekend here. Of course, we have another episode of News Bits, another episode of the Weekend Roundup. You guys know the drill. We're going to look at Europe's top 5 leagues as well as any other big games that are happening across European football. I'm going to give you my analysis and reaction, of course. Today, we are going to start off, like usual, looking at the Premier League in England. Now, this one is going to be a little different. This week is a little different here because the FA Cup is getting closer and closer to the final. We're getting into the weeds of the tournament here. And they had to postpone a total of 6 Premier League games across the weekend here. And it's a shame because we had some really big Premier League matchups, that I was looking to cover. Very excited to watch. We had Arsenal going up against Chelsea. We had the Merseyside derby, Everton versus Liverpool, Brighton, Man City, which is always a good game recently as well. So there's only a few matches that we're going to look at here. Of course, we had Burnley against Brentford. Burnley came away with the win here. 2-1 victory. Luton Town tied Nottingham Forest 1-1. Then West Ham and Aston Villa had a pretty good game. Ended up 1-1 on the score sheet there. The point share between the two teams. The one game that I want to focus on here, we had Fulham versus Tottenham. Now, Fulham is a team that I think historically over the past few seasons can always do some damage. I mean, they're not going to make a push for top 6 or anything like that, but they're always a team that can be a little dangerous. And then Tottenham are just having a really weird season. They've had some really crucial wins. I mean, who can forget that win over Liverpool that they had early on? And they were even top of the table at one point, but they also had some really, really shocking defeats. And this game right here is one of those shocking defeats. They ended up falling 3-0 to Fulham. Now, granted, Fulham was at home, but still losing 3-0 to Fulham is not something that you would expect from this Tottenham team. And it was a second half capitulation. All 3 goals were scored in the second half there. Very interesting game there. It's, I think it's more so just Postecoglou, the manager of Tottenham, is just still trying to figure out this squad, still trying to figure out the, iron out all the kinks, as they say. And he's made some visible improvements from last season. But still, it's not all there yet. So taking that into consideration, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement on the league table. Once we take a look at that, Arsenal still on top, tied with points on Liverpool, who's on second place, but Arsenal has a superior goal difference. Man City still in third, only 1 point behind them. And then Aston Villa is in fourth with 56 points. This was an opportunity for Tottenham to leapfrog Aston Villa into fourth place, but they weren't able to take that opportunity, and they sit in fifth as of recording this video. So let's move on to La Liga. Let's move on to Spain. And of course, as with all the other leagues besides England, they did not have their domestic cup competition going on this weekend. So all games were played as usual. Real Sociedad came away with a 2-0 win over Cadiz. Very important win for them as they're trying to re-find their feet after having a very tough past month or two. Osasuna fell 4-2 into Real Madrid. It's a replay of the 2023 Copa del Rey final, and this was a pretty good game in terms of, if you're a neutral fan. There were a lot of goals in this game. Vinicius opened the score in the 4th minute, but then Budimir, the Croatian striker who always pops up for Osasuna, very quickly equalized in the 7th minute, only for Dani Carvajal to score to put Real Madrid ahead 18 minutes in. And then in the second half, Real Madrid blew away Osasuna. Another goal from Vinicius, and then another goal from Brahim Diaz, who's been in great form recently, before Iker Munoz put one away. Consolation goal for Osasuna in the 91st minute. 4-2 on the final score sheet there. I think, if you have to look at this game as a wonderful performance from Vinicius Jr. A little bit of a controversial performance as he did get a yellow card there. There were some accusations that, he's provoking players, things like that. He, of course, is a controversial player for his actions on and off the pitch, but all that aside, you can't discredit how great of a player he is. And he is 100% back in form after missing some time with injury and then taking a little bit of time to, really settle himself back into the team. And the Real Madrid are looking really dangerous. They're looking better and better as the season goes on. Sometimes the performances might not match up the results, but they're still getting those results. So Real Madrid march on, and we're going to look at the next game here. We had Sevilla going up against Celta Vigo. Very interesting game to look at, considering Celta Vigo just sacked Rafa Benitez. And then Sevilla looked to be on the upward spiral after they had such an atrocious season. This is one of the worst seasons that I've ever seen from this Sevilla team. And it looked like Sevilla were going to get off to yet another win here. End the series. The veteran striker of La Liga scored in the 18th minute. Very good goal from him there. But as the match went on, Celta Vigo started to get some more and more chances, but it really started to click at the very end of the second half. Carlos Perez, former Barcelona player, scored in the 72nd minute, and then Strand Larsen scored another goal for Celta Vigo to put them ahead in the 78th minute to gain a lead that they would eventually hold on to. And Sevilla has been inflicted another defeat, but Celta Vigo gained a very necessary 3 points as they are trying to turn their season around. Of course, they have been having a very poor season. You can argue that it's mostly on Rafa. I think the players also should serve some of the blame as well, but it seems to be that they've just turned a new leaf here. On Sunday, we had a big match between Villarreal and Valencia. Villarreal is a team that had I would say, a poor start to the season, and they look to be turning it around. They look to be replicating some of the form that we've seen from this very talented Valencia team over the past few years. And then Valencia is a team that is a transition team. They're a very young team. They can have a wonderful performance, or they can kind of, collapse. It's very rarely is in between. I think that this was one of the games where it wasn't necessarily a bad performance, but it wasn't a complete performance from Valencia. On the other hand, Villarreal did come away with a vital win here, vital 3 points. Cuenca did score in the 54th minute to put his team ahead, a 1-0 lead, which they would ride out to the end of the 90. Like I said, very vital 3 points for Villarreal as they're trying to climb back up the table. And then we had a shock on Sunday as well. Real Vallecano was able to defeat Real Betis. One goal from Lejeune, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He is a guy that's always been around for Real Vallecano. And then a second goal from Camello in the 78th minute to strike down Real Betis, who I thought were on the up. I thought that they were going to really try and make a push for that fourth spot, but it looks like they hit a huge stumble in the road right here. Then we have the most important matchup of the entire week, not just in Spain. We had Atlético Madrid going up against Barcelona. Atlético Madrid was hosting Barcelona here. Both of these teams are the second and third in the league table. And then also, to add extra context to it, both of these teams just came off a very, very, I want to say, rousing and reinvigorating victory, each for their respective sides in the Champions League. Interestingly enough, both against Italian opposition as well. Atletico Madrid, of course, overcame Inter Milan. Very, very hard-fought win there. Had to go all the way to penalties. And then Barcelona played beautifully and eliminated Napoli there. And I think that when you consider that context, I think that does explain the score sheet here. Barcelona did come away with a 3-0 victory. A wonderful performance from them. One of the best performances that we've seen from Barcelona, not just in the season, but over the past few years, in my opinion. I think a big part of that, though, is because Atletico was just so tired from that match against Inter Milan. They had to go all the way to penalties, obviously extra time as well. It was very, very taxing on the players, and you can just see it here in the lineup. Obviously, Griezmann didn't start. Morata did start, but he has not been playing well recently. He is not in form. The first half, I thought it was a little shaky from both teams until Barcelona really started to get into their groove. João Felix poked the ball into the net. A wonderful build-up play there. João Felix scoring against his parent club, of course, as he is on loan from Atletico Madrid on Barcelona. He did not celebrate, which is surprising considering the negative reception that he received from the Atletico fans, both during the game and before the match. And then I think once the second half started, it looked like Atletico were trying to reinsert themselves into the match. Simeone made some changes. He subbed on, eventually subbed on Griezmann. He subbed on Memphis Depay, and then they were creating some chances. Llorente forced Ter Stegen into a really good save, and then Depay hit the rebound, forcing Ter Stegen into an even better save with his foot. That would have tied up the match there. But because of Ter Stegen, Barcelona was able to hold off on that flurry of Atletico chances. And then I think from that moment on, Barcelona really just started to take total control of the match. Lewandowski capitalized on a really poor defensive mishap, a terrible giveaway, and then some terrible defending from the three center backs allowed Lewandowski to have an opportunity. He took that opportunity very well with a shot from a very tight angle. It hit off the post and went in. And then over the next few minutes, it was just all Barcelona. Lewandowski again got into a great position and sent in a beautiful cross for Fermin Lopez, who scored a great header to make it 3-0. From that point on, Barcelona kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit, but they weren't ceding too much possession or ceding too much chances to Atletico there. Overall, like I said, very professional, very good performance from Barcelona. Not a great performance from Atletico, but you do have to consider the fact that they just came off this massive victory in the Champions League, and I don't think that they are really putting too much thought into the Champions League, into qualifying for the Champions League next year, because they know that they're basically guaranteed at least fourth spot, and league title at this point is pretty much out of the question. So it looks like they're going to put all their eggs into the Champions League basket. This victory for Barcelona is very important, though, when you consider how much of a fortress the Wanda Metropolitano is, as Inter Milan found out, of course. And yet Barcelona came here and basically tore them to shreds, 3-0. So great performance from Barcelona. As a Barcelona fan, I have to say that we've been seeing a continual string of great performances. Hopefully they can keep this up, especially when you consider the Champions League. But let's take a look at the league table here in Spain. Real Madrid is still on top with 72 points, but now Barcelona has leapfrogged Girona. They are now in second place on 64 points. Girona in third on 62 points. And then actually, I misspoke earlier. Athletic Club, because of their victory over the weekend, has leapfrogged Atletico Madrid, and they are now in fourth place on 56 points. Atletico Madrid in 55 points, and then there's a bit of a drop-off. Real Sociedad and then Real Betis and Valencia after them in that order, with Villarreal in ninth. Now, I do think, though, that Atletico Madrid will find themselves still in the top four. Unfortunately, I do think Girona might drop down a little bit further. It seems to be all kind of falling apart for them, as sad as it is to see. Athletic Club still has the Copa del Rey final to worry about, and I think that Atletico Madrid will do just enough as the season comes to a close. They just have a superior quality, superior talent within their team to not miss out on the top four. I think I saw a statistic that said for every single season that Diego Simeone has been at Atletico Madrid, they have not finished lower than third place in La Liga. I don't expect them to break that trend this time around. So let's move on to Italy. Let's move on to Serie A. We had some good matchups here. Again, we had Frosinone going up against Lazio on Saturday. This was an interesting match because Lazio had just fired their manager. They just fired Maurizio Sarri. Very interesting there. Not really sure why Sarri left. Now, there's been some controversy, some rumors. I haven't read too much into it, but it is very troubling to see a team go and beat Bayern Munich and then not win a single game after that. To, in fact, lose every game after that. So I think there is something there. There has been some rumors that the players and the manager, Sarri, there just broke down in relationship, and that they, Sarri kind of lost the locker room. Therefore, he had to step down. I can understand that. So that most likely probably is at least part of the reason why. Anyway, Lazio had their first game without Sarri here, and while it wasn't perfect, you did see a very different outlook on the team. They looked much more motivated, much more, proactive, wanting to go forward and energize. This match ended up finishing 3-2. Lazio still had some defensive flaws within them, but going forward, they they looked a very different team. In particular, Tati Castellano had a very good game. Elsewhere, Juventus tied Genoa 0-0 as their push for the title looks to fall away with every coming week. Vlahovic actually got a red card in the 93rd minute, which is not good for him, as he has been probably Juventus' best player this season. He's their top scorer, and he's going to miss at least the next game. Not great for Juventus. Their title challenge, as I'm saying before, looks to be just collapsing around them. Now, moving on to Sunday, we had Milan visiting Verona. This was a very good performance from Milan, in my opinion. They ended up winning 3-1. Teo Hernandez scored, Pulisic scored, and Chukwueze scored. Teo Hernandez, of course, is already a modern AC Milan legend. Chukwueze is a very important goal for him, the new signing. He's trying to find his spot in the squad. And then Pulisic, another goal from him. I think he is having a great year, and this might be a bit of a hot take, but I think this is his, just in terms of club, his best season so far in his young career. And as an American, I'm very glad that he went to Milan, and I'm also very glad that he has really ushered in his own role into the team. He's been a very important player this season, and he's been pulling off great performances seemingly every week. Roma was able to come away with a 1-0 win over Sassuolo. Pellegrini scored as Roma looked to be heading in the right direction, slowly climbing back up that league table. And then one of the most important matches of the entire weekend, not just in Italy, was on Sunday. We had Inter going up against Napoli. This was a very important game. It's very funny. We just talked about Atletico versus Barcelona playing each other. These were the two teams that both of those teams played, Inter versus Napoli here. And both these teams were coming off on the flip side of the Spanish teams, they're coming off the heartbreak of being eliminated from the Champions League. More so Inter than Napoli. I think, Napoli fans and players, just with the crazy season they've had, they weren't really expecting to defeat Barcelona and go to the quarterfinals. Versus Inter Milan, they are arguably top 3 best teams in the world. They have such an insurmountable lead in Serie A here. Also, you have to consider they got to the final of the Champions League last year. I'm sure a lot of their fans and the players are expecting to replicate that success and maybe even push for the Champions League title itself. I mean, they were one of the favorites in my opinion, and yet they did fall short. And that's sometimes how tournament football is. But it was very interesting to see how they would respond in this match here. And throughout the first, I want to say 60 minutes, I think Inter was by far the better team. They were creating a lot of chances. They would eventually score the opener in the 43rd minute in the first half there. Good goal from Darmian after a really well put together move. It was actually very similar to the goal that DeMarco scored against Atletico in the Champions League. And I thought the whole team was playing well, with the exception of the 2 strikers up top. Thuram missed some wild chances that, let's say a month ago, he would have put into the back of the net. Thuram has not been in the best of form as of late, and you can kind of say the same thing about Lautaro Martinez, although it's not as egregious. Lautaro didn't have a terrible performance, but it didn't have as electric performance as you're used to, because he has been by far the best player in Serie A this season so far. Top goal scorer, has a few assists as well. The performances, not aside from the statistics, have been amazing. And it is natural for a player that's playing at such a high level to have a bit of a drop off. But unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for Inter Milan, it happened, right at the, one of the most important parts of the season there. However, Napoli was given a lifeline in the 81st minute. A very, very rare instance of Inter Milan not defending a set piece well led to a goal from Juan Jesus, who was able to head the ball in. He was virtually unmarked in the box off a corner there. And Napoli rarely had any other chances throughout the entirety of the match. I thought that Kvaratskhelia had a good game, but still, it wasn't a wonderful attacking performance from Napoli there. I mean, you have to take into consideration that the manager, Calzone, this is his 4th game in charge, 5th game in charge. And then, you have to consider how just chaotic of a season it's been for Napoli overall. So I think that this was a bit of a lucky win for Napoli here. I think they were able to capitalize on maybe the slight drop, very slight drop in morale from Inter, and maybe some poor form from their strikers, because if Thuram puts away one or two of those chances, there's no chance that Napoli get back into this match. It'll be very interesting to see how Inter go on from this point, if they're able to fully regain their confidence and start smashing teams again. Because they don't really need to. I mean, they already have such a massive lead at the top, which we will look at in a second. So it's not really necessary for them to fully click back into form. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens from this point on. And as I just said, let's take a look at the league table here. Inter Milan still top of the table, 76 points. And then below them at second place, very, very far away, is now AC Milan on 62 points. And then Juventus was not able to reclaim second spot as of course they tied with Genoa. They are on 59 points in third. And then Bologna is still in fourth place on 54 points after continuing this great season that they are having. Roma is now in fifth on 54 points, coming up close to that fourth place spot. And then Atalanta in sixth, and then Napoli in seventh, with Fiorentina in eighth and Lazio in ninth. Anyway, let's move on to the Bundesliga in Germany. Leipzig came away with a smashing 5-1 victory over Cologne. Great performance from Leipzig there, trying to rebound after their elimination from the Champions League. Simmons had a great performance. He scored the opening goal, and then Openda scored a double. These two players, in my opinion, two of the best players in the Bundesliga, and very, very clearly Leipzig's two best players this season. Haidara scored another, and Poulsen scored another as well. We also had Bayern Munich coming in with a 5-2 smashing victory over Darmstadt. Now, the defending from Bayern, maybe not the best, but still, going forward, Bayern looks to have refound their form. Jamal Musiala had a monster of a performance here. He proves to be one of the best players in the world in his position. He had, like I said, wonderful performance there. And then Harry Kane scored yet another goal. And then also we had two late goals from Gnabry and Tell, who Tell is having a wonderful season individually, the young player there. Great performance from Bayern. Now, is it enough to overcome Bayer Leverkusen? And this week it was not, as Bayer Leverkusen, as dicey as it got, they did come away with a 3-2 win over Freiburg. And this was a match that was back and forth. Florian Wirtz scored in the second minute, only for the Japanese winger Duan to equalize in the 10th minute. Then Leverkusen did score two goals. One of them from Patrick Schick, who's coming off his wonderful performance in the Europa League, saving Bayer Leverkusen there with his two late goals against Karabag. But Keitel did score for Freiburg in the 79th minute to make it really dicey, and they had some chances to tie it up 3-3, but Leverkusen were able to hold on to that victory yet again. Now, at this point, it's getting ridiculous at this point. How many wins they're able to pull off from such tight situations. The mentality that Xabi Alonso has enforced on this team is immaculate. This is one of the best performances that we've seen from any team in the Bundesliga over the past few years. So, absolute miracle that Xabi Alonso and these players are pulling off there. Stuttgart did come away with a 3-0 win over Hoffenheim. Another win from Guirassy there, one of the standout players in the Bundesliga this season. And then the last game we're going to talk about here, Borussia Dortmund overcame Eintracht Frankfurt with a 3-1 win over there. Frankfurt actually scored first. Mario Götze scored against his old club, but Adeyemi was able to equalize, and then very late on, this was a very close game, late on, Mats Hummels scored in the 81st minute, and then Emre Can put the victory out of Eintracht Frankfurt's hands with a penalty there in the 93rd minute. Very important win for Borussia Dortmund as they are trying to climb up the table as well. Speaking of the table, we still have that 10-point gap at the top. Bayer Leverkusen in first place on 70 points, and then Bayern Munich in second place on 60 points. Stuttgart is still in third on 56 points, and then there's a bit of a gap between them and Borussia Dortmund in fourth at 50 points. After them, it is RB Leipzig and then Eintracht Frankfurt in that order. But it must be said, there is yet another massive gap, a 9-point gap this time between Eintracht Frankfurt and RB Leipzig there. So I don't expect there to be a lot of movement. This is most likely what the Bundesliga table is going to look like at the end of the season, I would say. Maybe Dortmund is able to leapfrog Stuttgart, but I don't expect to see that, especially with Dortmund having to worry about Champions League quarterfinals coming up. And Stuttgart had a bit of bad run of form, I would say, maybe around the holidays. But they look to have turned that around. As I just said, they had that very impressive 3-0 win over Hoffenheim there. So let's move on to France. Let's move on to Ligue 1. And we had a good game between Toulouse and Lyon. Lyon came away with a very rare win, which is crazy to say going into the season. Considering Lyon is historically one of the best teams in France. But of course, as I've talked about on the show multiple times, Lyon is just having an atrocious season. However, Lacazette was able to score, and then 2 late goals from Ryan Cherki and O'Brien in 77th and 81 minute, respectively, was able to turn the game around as they were 2-1 down to Toulouse for a large part of that second half. They were able to come around and grab the winner there. Very vital 3 points for them as they were trying to, stay as far away from the relegation zone as possible. They have moved away from it. They have, kind of gotten their act together, but still, there needs to be a lot more improvement there, and this was a step in the right direction, of course. Brest and Lille tied 1-1, which is important for both of those teams as they are trying to finish as high as they can on the table. Jonathan David did score the opening goal here. The Canadian striker there has been having a great season, in particular the past few weeks. He's been playing in great form. We also saw a crazy game, 2-2 between Monaco and Lorient, featuring a red card as well from both sides, and a last-minute equalizer from Bakayoko. I don't know if you remember him. He scored the equalizer in the 95th minute to save a draw for Lorient, the midfielder that used to play for Monaco and Chelsea and AC Milan, and Napoli as well, actually. And also, funnily enough, Lorient did score in the first minute as well. So they scored a goal in the opening minute and then in the closing minute, essentially. And also, this game is really weird. There's 2 own goals on either side. I'm looking at the score sheet right now. But moving on from there, Rennes came away with a shocking 2-0 win over Marseille, which is crazy considering how great Marseille has been playing ever since hiring Gasset. After their managerial change, they've been slowly moving up the table. In Ligue 1, they've also been playing really, really well in the Europa League. Aubameyang, in particular, has been having a wonderful season there. But possibly because of the fatigue of their Europa League win, and then maybe also just that new manager boost is starting to fade away a little bit, they fell here to a respectable Rennes side. Still, they ended up losing 2-0 there. And then the highlight match of the round was Montpellier going up against PSG. This game ended up a banger, 6-2 on the score sheet there. The first half was pretty close. Vitinha opened the score only for Montpellier to equalize, and they would actually be able to equalize again after Mbappe put PSG ahead, only for Montpellier to equalize right before the half. But in the second half, it was all PSG. Mbappe completed a hat trick. Lee Kang-in scored another, and then Mendes scored another as well to come away with a vital 6-2 win for PSG as they are getting closer and closer to being crowned the kings of France yet again. Last episode, if you listened, you will remember me saying that PSG need to get their act together. The past few weeks, they have not necessarily been playing the best in Ligue 1. I mean, they tied Reims 2-2 last weekend, and then they also tied Monaco the weekend before that. And it was looking like they were headed for another draw after tying 2-2 in the first half here. But great performance from them in the second half. Probably also the confidence boost of going through to the Champions League quarterfinals as well. And also the draw occurring as well. So anyway, that has been my total recap of all the games for the Europe's top 5 leagues across this weekend. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you watch these games. Let me know what as always, your favorite game. What was your favorite goal? Of course, I'm biased. My favorite game was the Atletico Barcelona game. My favorite goal probably was that header from Fermin Lopez. He is quickly becoming one of my favorite players, and it was just such a beautiful move. The way the ball was moved around on the right wing there, and then the cross from Lewandowski, who had a man of the match performance himself, and then wonderful header from Fermin Lopez making a late run from the midfield there. Let me know in the comments what your favorite goal and your favorite match was. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Don't forget to follow the Football Block on social media. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, I hope you have a nice rest of your night.